Particularly for awareness campaigns, people get stuck on how to measure progress. And so because we selected the right accounts in step 1 and learned about them in step 2, we knew before the campaign went live where these accounts sat in their awareness of our product line. So we did see higher proportions of those accounts move from early stage of awareness and consideration into a higher intent buying stage. This is Revenue Makers, the podcast by 6 Sense, investigating successful revenue strategies that pushed companies ahead.
Sima, so we're jumping into the 5-step approach to ABM campaigns.
Is it just 5 steps? That seems too easy.
Everything is 5 steps. You just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're done. I've been looking for the 5 steps to the winning the lottery. I haven't figured that one out yet. And again, this is 5 steps that we at 6 Sense came up with. This is not the definitive 5 steps of the history of the world that will get you the greatest campaign you've ever created, but it's a structure that we use. I think it works pretty well.
It might not be the definitive worldwide, but what is definitive worldwide? Anything. I think if you are executing an ABX campaign, if you follow these 5 steps, you'll be in great shape.
Yeah. So before we go one by one, let's just go through them all real quick. So everyone who's taking notes, because I know everyone who listens takes copious amounts of notes. So there are 5, as we mentioned. First is selecting the best accounts.
Yep. Once you've selected them, step 2 is to know about them.
Yeah, lots to know, lots of data out there. And then the third is taking that information and engaging with the accounts in the right way. And we talk about engage, we talk about all the different ways you get in front of accounts, advertising, email, events, all that fun stuff.
Yep. And once you've engaged with them, guess what? You've got to make sure that sales is aware. You've got to collaborate with sales, include them in as part of the campaign. Frankly, it shouldn't be a handoff as opposed to, maybe both teams working in conjunction, marketing and sales together. So collaborate with sales.
Yep. They got to have some skin in the game for sure together. And then 5, near and dear to our hearts, tracking real stuff, the data, the metrics, all the things that are happening to show whether or not the campaign is successful, you're hitting the right accounts and so forth.
Love it. 5 simple steps. So listen, I think in theory, people get it. It makes sense. They're pretty self-explanatory. Why don't we take a campaign that we've run internally, a omni-channel, multiple months, multiple steps of a campaign that we executed last year and make it real for everyone?
I like it. Let's do it. So here we go. So this campaign was a competitive takeout for a competitor that I will not name just for the sake of being safe. We brought out a sales intelligence product last year, which included contact data, kind of all the things that you would see in...
Wait, 6 Sense has contact data?
So yes, we do have that product, and that was new last year. And so we obviously wanted to get the word out. And we wanted to get the word out to competitors. Well, not to competitors. We wanted to get the word out to competitor customers. Say, like, if you got a renewal coming up, maybe talk to us.
I think the other point to add here, and this is going back to just campaign design, right? We're going to hit the 5 steps, but we were newer in the space last year. We've obviously made great strides since last year, and it's one of our fastest growing product lines. But we had to introduce a new product to market. We needed to unseat an incumbent at the end of the day, right? Which is not an easy thing to do. And so this campaign had to kind of cut through the noise and really grasp people's attention.
Yes, and we went a little bit off the rails with some of the creative, but it was fun. But it still followed these steps pretty closely, or to the letter, I would say, for the most part. So,
step 1,
selecting best accounts. So in this case, in order for us to select the best accounts, we focused on, again, using our own data to understand who are the accounts out there that are using these other sales intelligence, contact data products, and so forth. So technographics.
Yeah.
Hopefully you have access to, or you can look into getting access to technographic data. If you're in technology, hugely valuable data to understand, like, who's using your competitor products. So we built a segment, starting with your ICP, of course.
So the ICP segment lives in 6 Sense as a source of truth. It is a list of accounts. That's the filter criteria number 1. All right. Number 2 is the technographics that you mentioned.
Right. And just bear in mind with an ICP segment, whether it's 6 Sense, whether it's another platform, whether it's manual, however you want to do it, you want to have your universe defined. Next, we say, okay, we want to see customers of and enter, in our case, it was all of the keywords or all the competitors for all the different sales intelligence products that we were going after. There were about 6 or 7 of them that were right in our wheelhouse of these are competitors that we definitely want to try to unseat, get in front of, so forth. So again, building that right in, pretty straightforward to build that within the platform. From there, we would also add in some other, okay, we want to make sure that we're not getting in front of our customers already. If this is in this particular case, we're doing a prospect campaign. Anything else around like, are these accounts that already exist in your CRM? If they don't, there could be a no process of, okay, let's go find those new accounts, but we're going to just stick with all of the data that we've already pulled into our CRM. And in this process as well, depending upon, and we didn't in this campaign, but other campaigns, you might want to take a look at where the accounts are in their buyer journey. So if you've got any sort of stage-based data as well. In this case, we wanted to hit a pretty wide selection of accounts. So we actually left the stage out of it because, again, one of the big parts of this, and we talk a little bit later about measurement, was pure brand awareness, getting it from these accounts. So it was a pretty large group of accounts, but the technographics were key.
So, Adam, as you were kind of finalizing the selection of the accounts, do you know ballpark how many accounts were in this campaign?
I think it was between 10 to 15,000, if I remember.
Okay. And was it North America only or was it global? We do play in EMEA.
Yes. In this particular case, this one we kept in North America.
Okay.
We did do another later, but we stepped this one to North America.
All right. So we've got the best accounts now. They are accounts that we, meet our ICB criteria. They are current users of this competitive platform.
And we have all the data already for them. So,
all right. So step 2 means know about them. So we've got the account list, which is great, but knowing about them takes it a step further. And with any account-based approach, you want to meet those prospects where they are in their journey, right? So knowing about them is number 1, understanding what is their level of intent, right? Are they in early awareness stage with 6th Sense, or are they actively maybe looking at us, if not for this net new product line, but for something else? So just understanding their level of awareness of 6th Sense is an important one. So we look at the buying stages. We also look to see, are any of these accounts already engaging with us anonymously or self-identifying? So are they on our website? If they are on our website, which pages and content is resonating with them? That's a great hint for us on the types of things we should be talking about when we do our outreach. If they're not on our website, can we capture what keywords they are interested in and are researching on 3.5 million other B2B websites that 6th Sense partners with, right? And so what keywords are resonating with them? Keywords can be named things like competitive platform names, competitor names, and so on. But in this case, where we were looking to drive awareness, some of the pain point specific keywords become really interesting, right?
Yeah.
Accurate contacts data. We want to know when someone's interested in researching that. And I will say, being able to get really granular for specific keywords and pain points is really, really important for us. It's something that really only 6th Sense provides, down to that level of granularity where customers have unlimited keywords that they can enter into the platform and track. And so we went pretty deep on some of the keywords that we wanted to track for this campaign. And then once we've got our audience, we want to know, okay, which of all the keywords we put in, which ones are folks actually researching? And then finally, knowing about them. Another angle we look at is, are they interacting with any existing marketing automation or CRM campaigns? 6th Sense offers free Bombora topics. We have a partnership with Bombora so all our customers get free Bombora topics. So we are also able to see, are they surging on any key topics that are of interest? All of this obviously helps us understand where they are and craft the message, but it informs the content strategy of how we are going to speak to them.
You now have your topics, your content strategy for the campaign, and probably going forward. And we use a lot of this information because it was early on in the life of this product to help define our content strategy beyond this campaign and what kind of content we wanted to create for this essentially new audience for us again. Because again, we traditionally were selling into marketing, at least marketing first. Sales was certainly coming along during a 6th Sense sale and certainly users of it. But now engaging directly with sales from the beginning was a new motion for us. And we had to create a bunch of new content to sort of address a different buyer, different mobilizer, different sponsor all sorts of the things. So hugely, hugely helpful.
Step 3. This is your time to shine, Adam, because I know you all had a whole lot of fun with it. So talk about how we engaged with these accounts, but I just want to say there's a website out there, dumpyourdatavendor.com, that every single listener should go and check out because it really is a great sort of representation of what this campaign was about.
Yes. So we actually, in collaboration, worked very closely with our product marketing team. And they had come up with the idea of like, hey, let's do something about breaking up with your contact data provider. We were planning this. We were thinking at one point about a Valentine's Day launch. So there's kind of like, okay, we could do something there. They shared that idea with us. And the older people on the team, myself included, got our hands on this. And if you remember, and Simon, I know you remember this, and many, it was the world back in the 90s of commercials with one like Columbia Music or whatever, where you could buy like greatest 80s and they would scroll the songs and they would have them playing and it would be somebody talking at the camera about it. Then we had Miss Cleo, if you remember, when you could call for your fortune, and all this stuff came together in a very weird menagerie of things that created, we came up with the idea of a dump your data vendor hotline. And the idea was like, you could call the number, get advice about how to break up with your vendor, what to say to them. We had celebrity impersonators. You want to know how to break up with your contact data provider? Listen to Morgan Freeman, ease you into it. We created a video, a number of different videos, a commercial for the hotline itself, the website, if you go take a look at it. We actually created the hotline, the phone number that works. You can go, you can dial.
And guess what? It went to the BDRs.
It went to the BDRs. It was everywhere. And so again, like ultimately, this is still about, I mean, great creative. It was great. It was wild.
We leaned hard into the nostalgia.
We did. We went very 90s. But again, we were still focused on that type of engaging in the best. And again, if you think about it, we made a couple of assumptions calls, like that the buyers for contact data, sales intelligence, sales leaders are probably going to be a little bit around. They were around in the 90s. They're going to remember this. So certainly a level of that. And then having really great and creative video assets. And we, of course, we built ads with static display ads and all that off there, but we were able to just blow that out across pretty much all channels. So certainly through video advertising on YouTube, display advertising via our platform, Facebook, LinkedIn. But again, it was such a wild creative that it caught quite a bit of attention. We were still targeting those accounts. We were still trying to drive engagement back to the site. And we could talk more about obviously all the measurement of that. But this was actually the first time in running these ads, especially on LinkedIn, that we were getting just a steady stream of comments on our paid ads. And then when we went and posted these organically, it was like wild because people were just losing it over the creative, which in and of itself was great because it drove awareness. And again, that was a big part of it. It's like, again, we wanted people to be like, hey, I want this product. I want to see a demo. But we also just wanted to say, hey, 6th Sense has this product now. Like, we're here. So it was a lot of fun, and ads around like breaking up and ads about the hotline. At one point we had the build up to this was we had a breakup guide. So a written piece of content, again, driven a lot by what we saw from research and intent and so forth. We had a breakup webinar. We had video commercials in the webinar. It was a lot of fun, but ultimately we engaged in a way that was out there and different just to get that attention because we know how crowded it is out there. And the sales intelligence space is very, very, very busy. There's just a lot of offerings, a lot of competitors. We have to make some noise. And ultimately that's what we did with the creative.
And then I think one more point on engagement I'd love for you to hit on is persona specific. Because yes, we have the overall intent. Yes, we have the multiple channels, the website, the hotline, the webinars, the emails, the ads, but talk about the persona specific outreach that happened here.
We definitely focused in our area on sales, certainly, right? And we looked at sales leaders themselves, VPs of sales, BDR, SDR. Again, like if you're leading a large, not even a large, you're leading an SDR, BDR team, you're going to be thinking about data. What are the right tooling for that they have for that? We really focused in on that persona very, very specifically. And in all the channels where we could do that persona targeting, Six Sense Display, LinkedIn. That's where we spent our time. And the interesting thing about that was we hadn't run that much in the past directly to that persona. So that was a little bit new for us as well, but we wanted to be targeted to these accounts, getting in front of them. And we've since done other things where we target sales, we're also targeting marketing because obviously there's a collaboration between that product as well. But that was really the first time that we did that to really get directly in front of them. Again, back from the data that we had from 6 Sense.
So moving into step 4, collaborate with sales. Now, before the campaign was even launched, sales was made aware of the fact that this was going to be coming. There was going to be this big push. We obviously wanted the sales team to be doing social engagement with all of these things, but it goes beyond that. So we had our BDR team armed with cadences and SalesLoft that spoke directly to this. What else did we have from a sales perspective?
So we had a very specific calling script. We're lucky at 6 Sense. We have a large BDR organization. We also have an enablement team. So we worked very, very closely with them. If you checked out our episode last week, we talked a lot about cold calling. It still works, but it works the best, the right message at the right time targeted. So we really spent a lot of time on, again, like it was a new motion, right? BDRs were not used to picking up the phone and calling directly to sales leaders because this was a new product for us. So we spoke a lot about that. They had cadence inside of our SalesLoft, which we use for our SEP. They had talking points. Basically, we wanted to make sure that they felt comfortable with this new persona, that as all of these things were running, all of the ads and all the different types of engaging the right way was going on, that when they went in over dialing and so forth, that they had confidence that they knew what they were talking about and they knew how to talk to the right folks.
Yeah. And then on top of that, of course, the BDRs were manning the hotline. They were taking inbound demo requests there. And again, some of it was just fun, right? Because people were hitting the connect to a live person just even to see what it was about. And so the BDRs had some fun engaging with prospects that way. Sales obviously proactively was doing outreach. We talked a lot about what the BDRs are doing, but sales leaders, they were amplifying this on social and also doing outreach into existing open opportunities. So really blanketing, I think, the BDR and the AE org with information about the campaign, scripts, and collateral to help them get involved, and then obviously benefiting from some of the inbounds that were coming.
Yeah, and when we move into our fifth and final step, we can talk about all the different ways that prospects were able to engage, that we're able to measure, and then some of the more just awareness kind of things as well. But again, like even a few months before, up until after this launch, we were so focused on this. It was a really cool thing to see because again, marketing and sales are working so tightly together. We had the campaign, we had all these programs going on. The message was, let's get this product out there. And I think we did a pretty good job.
Yeah. All right. So step number 5, track real stuff. And I feel like particularly for awareness campaigns, people get stuck on how to measure progress, right? Because lagging indicators like an actual inbound demo request, those are the easy things to measure. But if this is an awareness campaign, how do you really start to understand, are you moving the needle? And so because we selected the right accounts in step 1 and learned about them in step 2, we knew before the campaign went live where these accounts sat in their awareness of 6 Sense and awareness of our product line, right? So we had probably a high proportion of those 10 to 20,000 accounts that you mentioned in an awareness or consideration stage. And so one of the key KPIs that we looked at was, 6 weeks, 8 weeks after this campaign launched, how is that same cohort of accounts looking in terms of their intent stages? And so we did see higher proportions of those accounts move from early stage of awareness and consideration, or even showing no intent at all of target, into a higher intent buying stage. So that was, I think, the most top of funnel KPI that we looked at from is this working? Now we had our own website, dumpyourdatavendor.com. And so we were able to track, because 6 Sense has best in class reverse IP lookup and web de-anonymization, we were able to track which accounts are hitting that page, which pages are resonating most, what is the scroll through rate, what is, the source of that traffic. And so that became a great indicator of, are we driving awareness? And then, of course, some of the more bottom of funnel type things like actual demo requests and inbound calls to the hotline,
And I would say this was one of those campaigns where we were sort of firing on in every kind of sales interaction that we have, right? Because again, Simon talked about accounts that are moving forward. For us, we live and die by accounts that hit that later stage decision of purchase. We call it a 6QA, call it a qualified account, whatever you say. So accounts hitting those, that's when our sales team and our BDR team is saying, hey, this account's showing a lot of activity, go ahead and do an outreach. So they were able to use, again, the email cadences that were given to them. At the same time, we have a concept of a 6QL because we are acronym crazy here at 6 Sense, which is that's when somebody hits our site and says, hey, I want a demo or I want to learn more. And we had a specific way, okay, anyone that was coming and asking for a sales intelligence demo. So we were measuring that. So we really had a number of different ways to progression, 6QA, 6QL. Since we were aiming for both that brand awareness and of course the direct, like, hey, we want the goods. We need pipeline from an advertising perspective, just like even understanding how many accounts were reached. Because again, we did have a pretty wide net. We wanted customers and prospects just to know who we were, just start to associate the product with us. So that was actually a really important metric for us, just to look at the overall reach of these campaigns. And of course, click-through rates and all that were important as well. But a very high-level metric was helpful because we knew thousands of these accounts were starting to get exposed to the message, which was a hugely valuable part of this as well.
Yeah. And then I think the one other piece maybe we didn't mention was we ran ads. And so we looked at ad performance metrics as well in a lot of depth. And we kind of blew all of our own benchmarks out of the water with this one.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that I think this really comes down to, video creative just performs better. And then crazy people video creative, as I'm going to call it, because we did go a little bit, which if you go to that website, the Dumper Data Vendor, you can see it. So much to the point where actually I feel like it was like a day before we were going to launch. I think I even said to you, I'm like, should we show this to some people before we go just to make sure that we haven't totally lost our minds? That was actually, I think, probably the first time I've ever been like, wait a minute, did we go too far? But anyway, we didn't. I think it was tasteful.
Yeah, it was fun. And so we hit the 5 steps. In the end, I think, let's just talk a little bit about the so what and the outcome. I think we hit a nerve in a positive way beyond just the pipeline and the interest that we were able to drive. I mean, I mentioned at the beginning of this call that product line is our fastest growing SKU at this point. So we've done a great job of driving pipeline for the company for our sales intelligence product line. But we had so many organic sort of posts coming out about, number one, bringing humor back into B2B, which was lovely to see because I think we laugh a lot at 6 Sense. And, sometimes you don't know if it's just we're in this bubble. We laugh at our own jokes, but it really resonated externally where people just loved the fact that it was bold and there was humor involved. I think people really got that nostalgia component. And I think somebody even posted, or a couple of folks posted about how this harkened them back to a time of, coming home from school and like sitting in front of the TV and seeing the infomercials come. So that's the beauty of great campaigns. They go beyond sort of, yes, they'll do the job of driving awareness and driving pipeline, but they'll also hit home and resonate with that target audience.
The nice thing to say about it too is like, we did go so crazy, but it was very much data backed and it was very much following these steps, looking at what the accounts look like. Like we could have done something wild and just would have been completely off point. And people would have been like, you crazy. But it was, I think just the steps were so helpful to outline it, to have the data, to understand it. And it's a really good way to keep yourself honest and just follow a process and think about whatever you're doing, right? Like I'm going to do a competitive takeout campaign. Even if you're going to go after pre-event for a conference or, a new product launch itself that doesn't have it. I mean, there's so many different ways you can do this. And this was just a really good way to sort of keep our eyes on the prize while also sort of having a little bit too much fun on the side.
Yeah. We've got a couple of other examples of how we've used the 5 steps in our campaigns. Those live in sixsense.revcity.com, which is our website, our online community. We will, in the show notes, put in a little more detail on the 5 steps. I think it as a helpful takeaway. And, we encourage everyone to really apply a sort of thoughtful approach to these campaigns, hit on the 5 steps because, they're just very intuitive and they're helpful. And then encourage people to think outside the box and know your audience, meet them where they are, and make sure that you've got really great KPIs in place before you actually launch something. Otherwise, don't launch it, let's be honest, and make sure you bring sales in along the way.
Absolutely. Words to live by. So I will say that's it. So thank you, Simon. That was a great review. And thanks everyone for joining us.
You've been listening to Revenue Makers.
Do you have a revenue project you were asked to execute that had wild success? Share your story with us at sixthsense.com/revenue, and we might just ask you to come on the show. And if you don't want to miss the next episode, be sure to follow along on your favorite podcast app.